Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We're at the Victoria Library in Victoria, Minnesota. My name is Scott Davis. I'm a technology associate with Carver County Libraries. What that means is that it's my job to connect people with library resources, mobile apps, ebooks, the computers you see around me here in the library, whatever it might be. And I'm available Monday through Friday, weekdays at one branch or another. Always happy to help. You can come by and see me without an appointment. I'll do whatever I can to help you out. I'm not maybe a Geek Squad level guy, but I can get by on most things and figure them out. So tonight we're talking about technology for travel, technology tips. And my disclaimer up front, I don't consider myself an expert because I don't travel that much. But I'm a pretty good researcher, as we are prone to be here in the library, and compiled a whole bunch of information. Have used some of it personally, and I've talked to a number of people who also have used these. The idea for this class actually came from our library patrons. So many come in to print. We have print stations in every library. Travel documents, boarding passes, luggage tags, whatever it might be. And it tends to spark conversations about where they're going and how they're getting there. And technology is always a challenge for folks, me included. Even though I work in a technological job, I tend to not trust technology, maybe because I work with it so much. They know what can go wrong. But last spring I did my first all-in tech trip where I trusted my phone apps for everything, my boarding passes, rental car, and the whole deal. It was so easy and convenient. It kind of won me over. So that's part of what I'm sharing too. So we are maybe 5 or 10 years too late offering this class. I saw a study from the AARP that said 90% of people over 50 are already using all the mobile apps and all that stuff when they travel. So this isn't new ground, but there's still some things related to security and convenience and things like that that I thought are good to know. Even if you already know them, it's a great reminder. So we'll be going through some of that stuff. So what I began with is a list of things to do before you leave home. And the folks here in the room have a checklist. We make it available to everybody online as well. But I thought, before you even leave the house, there are some things you can do to protect yourself. And we'll just kind of buzz through a few of these. And one of them at the top of the list is your passwords for things. I got to admit, the last time I've traveled, or the last few times, I didn't really think about that piece, but having good quality passwords is a pretty big defense, a wall to protect you from hackers. Let's face it, when you're traveling, that's one of the things that happens. You're using more mobile apps and public Wi-Fi in places where you normally aren't. So you're kind of exposing yourself a little bit to more people unknown who are capable of who knows what. I handed out a chart, this colorful one here, mainly because it amused me. So what this chart is explaining is how difficult it is for a hacker to hack into one of your accounts based on the number of characters in your password and how complicated it is. So you can see in the upper left-hand corner, if you've got a 4-character password with just numbers, it takes seconds or a fraction of a second for what they would call a hacker bot to figure out what that password is. By hacker bot, I mean it's a computer that will just try patterns until something works. So you don't want to be in the purple. And what the experts say is the length of your password is even more important than how complex it is. And you can tell as you get to the bottom of the chart, up to 18 characters, we're talking billions and quadrillions of years for a bot to figure out the password. So it's amazing the difference the number of characters makes. It's a good idea to not use dictionary words. that a bot might be familiar with, but I do. Or I'll substitute a 3 for an E, a 0 for an O, just to mix it up a little bit. But here in Carver County for staff, they made us go 14 characters or more to log into all of our stuff. And this is why. On the back side of this page is another chart. You'll notice the numbers are a little larger. They redid this using real modern artificial intelligence or AI bots, which are faster and more powerful. And as they're trying to hack passwords, you can see if you've got an 18-character password, numbers, upper, lowercase, and symbols, 631 quadrillion years, even for a high-powered bot to hack that password. It seems a little bit unbelievable that it's lab tested, and yeah, pretty remarkable. So, just wanted to drive home that point that if you've got a short, easy password like your dog's name, before you travel, you might want to update it, make it a phrase, something with some numbers, whatever it might be. Very basic thing, but if it's a bank account or something critical and you're away from home and somebody's monitoring networks, it's good to have something. It's just a small thing you can do. Public Wi-Fi, it's always a threat. I hate to say that because we have it here in the library. Everybody in the building can get on our Wi-Fi network. We don't always know who they are, what they're capable of, what kind of equipment they might have. But when they're on the same network you are, they can monitor and find a lot of things, and even get access to your device if you're also connected to it. So another tip before you leave home is to start thinking about ways you can avoid using public Wi-Fi. So your cell network, especially if you're traveling domestically, you've got Verizon or T-Mobile, whoever. If you can do that with your unlimited data, it's best to avoid public Wi-Fi, whether you're in a hotel, a restaurant, or wherever. The cell towers are more secure than public Wi-Fi. They're not quite perfect either, but they're better. I would also say, if you're bringing a laptop with you, have you ever used your cell phone as a mobile hotspot? So it can work like Wi-Fi, but instead of being open to the public, it's just your phone and your computer talking to each other. Your phone becomes the buffer to the internet. That's more secure than public Wi-Fi as well. Okay. This. If you're staying in the U.S., you can come to the library. Check out a mobile Wi-Fi hotspot. We have, when we're fully stocked, about 90 of these, and they are T-Mobile devices. Anywhere in the U.S., T-Mobile has a Wi-Fi or a cellular signal. You can get Wi-Fi for your computer, phone, whatever. When you check it out, it's yours for 2 weeks. Unlimited data, and bring it on back. So they're kind of in demand. If you know you have a trip coming up and this would fit the bill, you might want to reserve one at least a couple weeks in advance so it's ready when you are ready to go on your trip. But these are super handy. You can see them in the box, well, smaller than a hockey puck, like a Sucrets box from years ago. Another thing I would recommend, if you have apps, for example, I've got the US Bank app on my phone. If I had it set up to automatically log me in every time I hit the app button, that's something you probably won't want to do on the road. If you're somewhere else, somebody finds your phone or steals it, hope they don't. If they're able to get past the login and tap that app, they've got access to all your accounts. So it's kind of a good idea to turn off automatic login and things like that, especially the financial apps. You can turn it back on when you get home. It just requires them to know your password, which is a lot harder than just tapping the app with your phone. So again, these will all be on this checklist. You can order it as another. Another thing I'd recommend is doing updates. I know my wife and family, they almost never install app updates and things on their phone. It's just something they don't like to deal with. But before you leave home, it'd be a really good time to do that. Update your phone's operating system, if it's an Apple, the iOS, or the Android, Google, whatever. Those are usually loaded with security updates. So might as well have the latest and greatest, safest stuff on your phone before you go. So I recommend updating the operating system and the apps before you hit the road, so that you don't have to worry about it while you're gone. Social media is a big deal. Any of you guys use Facebook much or social media apps? I don't, for trust issues, but everybody I know does. And just best practice, don't post anything on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, or whatever that would tell people when you're going to be gone and where you're going. Apparently some people like to take photos of their boarding pass, kind of like meal at a restaurant, and then they're showing their friends, oh, look, I'm going to Cancun. Probably not a good practice. If people see it, there's always a chance there's that one bad apple in the crowd that's going to put two and two together. And, well, the house is empty on these dates, they're gone. So, again, I don't know how many people actually do that, but probably a lot more than I would think. So there's a good tip, too. Nothing online that would indicate where you're going or when would be best practice. Bluetooth on your phone. A lot of people use AirPods, you know, the wireless earbuds. So they leave Bluetooth all the time. It's turned on the phone. It's just another avenue hackers can use to get into your phone. I'm not sophisticated enough to know how to do that. But when you're on the road, best practice would be to turn off Bluetooth unless you absolutely need it. You can always flip it on with just a quick flip of the thumb. But when you're in the airport on a plane, if you don't need it, turn it off. That's, I think, pretty solid advice. Another thing, if you anticipate doing any online banking and think, well, I'll do it while I'm in London or whatever, probably better to do it before you leave. That sounds a little ridiculous, but I know if I have a credit card bill that I would normally pay online, I can schedule it in advance. So make the payment on the 15th or something like that. If I set that up before I go home, I can generally trust it'll work. I don't have to log into that account while I'm away from home. And that too reduces a little bit of risk. I'm just staying away from those accounts when I'm in places that are out of my control. So public Wi-Fi, I talked about that a little bit. It's not just inherently horrible, but it can be pretty risky, and I think overseas tends to be more risky than it is here. But everywhere, again, you don't know who's on the network and what they're capable of. So if you're familiar with a VPN or virtual private network, it's something you might want to consider installing while you travel. There are free versions, there are apps you can put on your phone or your tablet, whatever you're using, or a computer. You might want to have it just while you're traveling. When you get home, delete it, turn it off. It's up to you. But the way they work is they scramble your device's identity. So instead of somebody being able to go through a network and zero right in on your iPhone or your laptop, it goes this zigzag pattern all over the world through these crazy network channels. It's too hard for them to track you. So something to consider. There are, again, free
How do
ones.
you get one?
You can get them if it's on a phone or a tablet in your app store. You can just use VPN as a search term, and then you kind of have to do some shopping. There may be some names like Norton that you're going to recognize, that you trust. Others are free. They all kind of do the same thing. And I don't really recommend one over the other, but probably good to have one, at least temporarily, while you're on the road. I have found when I have one at home, it can be a little frustrating. If I'm trying to log into US Bank, they may not think it's me because of that scrambling thing, they think, oh, somebody from Timbuktu is logging into your bank account. It's just me enchanting this, but it's the good and bad of the VPN. So I tend not to use it at home, but if I'm traveling, it would be pretty handy. Again, we talked about maybe using your cell phone as an alternative to Wi-Fi. That's a thing. Multi-factor authentication is a term we've kind of got a love-hate relationship here in Carver County. Most of the programs, the apps that we use require it. So I might log in, put in my password, and then it won't let me in until it calls my phone and says, is this really you trying to log in? But when you're traveling, not a bad thing to have on there. Again, all these things, there's a cost-benefit thing to them. If it's just not worth the headache for you, I get it.
Is it better for them to call our phone or to send an email? Or is it equal?
Equal. Yeah, whatever you're more comfortable with. You know? It's a good question. The question was, is it better to use a phone call for authentication or email? It's a matter of personal taste. So another thing that I did before my most recent trip was I installed every app I thought I could possibly need on the trip before I left, knowing I could delete them later. But while I was gone, at Delta Airlines, I had 2 different airlines, American and Delta, Enterprise rental car, National rental car, right? Whatever I was using, hotels, anything that had an app that I thought I might encounter along the way, I installed it just in case I needed it. Before I left, I launched it, logged in, like with Delta, figured out how to get my boarding pass and things like that through the Delta app. So I had it there if I needed it. Good thing to do when the pressure's not on while you're still at home. Got a little time to relax and fight the technology. There are some other apps that maybe you wouldn't need normally that could come in handy, like rideshare apps. If you are in another city, foreign city, domestic, doesn't matter. Lyft, Uber, rideshare apps like that, you never know. You might want to catch a ride from the museum to a restaurant. You may never use it, but to have it right there and set up, it's kind of a nice thing. And then again, you can delete it when you get back home. I noticed the last time I did go through the airport, I was one of the last to board my flight. So I was watching as people were boarding. And it looked to me like about 95% of the people were just showing their phone. So the printed boarding pass I had in my pocket. It's almost a thing of the past. I would guess it's probably less than 5% of the people using it now. And so I got up my courage and I used the app and I showed it on my phone. But I had that paper in my back pocket. I would never try to talk anyone out of that. It's always good to have backup plans. But yeah, I was kind of amazed at how complete the adoption is for the e-boarding pass and things like that. Another thing I did on my most recent trip was a contactless rental car pickup, which felt a little weird. So I got to the airport at an awful hour, 2 in the morning or something like that. They had an unstaffed rental car area, and it was national in Phoenix. I went down, scanned the thing on my phone, it directed me to my car. It was all without a human interaction. They did have a couple of people in the ramp. And then it was the same thing when I brought the car back. I just parked, followed the signs, parked the car, did something on the app, and that was it. I didn't have to talk to anybody. It was very strange, but in hindsight, it's super convenient. It was pretty nice, especially that 2 o'clock in the morning deal where I didn't have to go hunt somebody down. So, you know, it earned some of my trust through that experience. So, yeah, another thing that I've used are city guides. Disney's a good example if you happen to be going to a Disney park. They have an app that's got all things Disney on it. Make reservations for your rides, you've got maps, you've got sample itineraries, meals, reservations for restaurants. Getting that kind of thing on your phone in advance, even if you don't intend to use it, it's pretty handy. I used a city guide for Phoenix when I was there. Gotta admit, I didn't use it too much. I kind of knew what I wanted to do. But there were times I referred back to it. If I had some time and I was looking for something nearby that sounded like fun, it was pretty nice to have. One thing, probably the last thing I was willing to accept was Apple Pay, Google Pay. I don't know if you've used that, but it's the deal where to pay, instead of pulling out a credit card, you just kind of hold your phone over a device, bing, it takes your money from your credit card through your phone. In fact, in the library, our little copy machine print release thing takes Apple Pay and Google Pay. And it's pretty easy, it is handy. So when you're traveling, whether you're abroad or in the US, you don't have to pull out that credit card and stick it in a machine, which does add a little bit of risk. Because credit card skimmers are a very real thing. If you swipe or put in a chip, minimal, but there is a risk that somebody could steal your number through that device. Apple Pay and Google Pay have some other layers of security built in. So again, maybe it's not something you use here, but for the week or two you're on the road, maybe it's worth having it as a backup. Still a good idea to have a credit card with you and not rely on it completely, because it's technology. But it's a pretty handy thing to have, and it's accepted just about everywhere in the world. Google Pay and Apple Pay, there are probably others I'm not thinking of, but those are the two, like the MasterCard and Visa of electronic payments. So that's something you might want to set up before you leave. I also want to talk a little bit about your cell phone itself. Not so much of a big deal if you're staying in the US, but if you're leaving the country, it's best to have a plan for how you're going to use it if you need to use it. If you need to call home or call to the next country and talk to the hotel or whatever. You know, if you just use your regular old T-Mobile calling plan, they'll nail you with roaming charges and it gets really expensive really fast. There are some ways around that. I'm no expert in this, but there's something called an eSIM card, which again is an app you get from the App Store. Not a physical device you need to install on your phone. But it has kind of a built-in international calling plan that gives you better rates, much cheaper than you would through your domestic cell carrier. So that would be worth considering. The other option would be when you get to wherever you're going to actually buy a little SIM card. That's the little chip that's in your phone. You can pop yours out and replace it with that one. It'll work in that country. And then, you know, there's the whole deal about WhatsApp. You familiar with that one? And there's some others. Line is another one. Again, these are apps you can install on your phone. WhatsApp will let you call from another country to the United States with no charges. It just goes through Wi-Fi, basically. And so people call here, I mean from here to you, if you're in Europe, you'll get roaming charges for that, but you can call from WhatsApp here, no charge. The catch is they have to have WhatsApp installed on their devices as well for you to communicate. So you can send texts, you can exchange photos, you can do all kinds of stuff through it for free, and it's a free app. But again, maybe it's one of those things you use for 2 weeks and then delete off your phone. That's a good alternative if you anticipate having to make calls.
It's also encrypted too.
Yes, it is encrypted. That's correct. And you can do just about any type of file sharing, I believe. If you want to send a Word document with your itinerary on it to somebody back here, you can use WhatsApp. Wi-Fi calling is another option. If you are on a public Wi-Fi network overseas, you can generally use Wi-Fi calling to call back and forth and not get those charges you would for your cell carrier. There are some exceptions to that. There's another product called Google Fi, which I just learned. Have you heard of that one before? So Google Fi is kind of the equivalent of WhatsApp from Google, where they've negotiated rates for phone calls, data, texting, surfing the net, whatever, with carriers all over the world. So you would get the Google Fi app, use that to make your connection, and then you can charge their discounted rate that they've negotiated with the local carriers there. So cheaper than paying roaming charges for sure, but there's still a little bit of cost. So something to look into. Offline maps, maybe an underrated thing you can do. So while you're still at home, if you're going to Seattle or wherever, you can generally download a map onto your phone. So if you don't have a network connection while you're rolling around Pike's Place Fish Market, you can pull it up on your phone and still view it. Use it as a walking guide. And it's kind of a handy thing. So public transportation apps as well. Have any of you guys used Southwest Transit recently? So I took an express bus to a Minnesota Wild game, of all things, to St. Paul from Channings. And I didn't know. I hadn't been on the Southwest bus other than the State Fair bus for a long time. They have an app, and you prepay for your bus ticket. It's like a boarding pass. You get on the bus, you show them your phone, and you go. I was very reluctant to do it for a one-time trip, but it was so easy. It kind of won me over. So I did it, paid for my ticket online, and then I deleted the app after the game, so I don't have that on my phone anymore. But it's super slick. So those are available in a lot of cities around here. Really any major metropolitan area, and a lot of them overseas. They now have a mobile app where you can buy your tickets on your phone and just take some of the pressure off of it maybe, rather than standing with somebody who doesn't speak English very well and trying to figure out how to get the currency right and all that. So that's something to consider. Just a couple more things to do before you leave. Air tags, is that a familiar thing? Pretty much everyone's heard of them by now. I have not used them yet. But I'm tempted on my next trip. All it would take is one lost suitcase, and then I wish that I had picked one up. But Google's got a product as well, Google Tags, I believe we call it. There's an independent one called Tiles. But yeah, little wireless devices you can put on items of value or in your suitcase or purse or whatever it might be. If it happens to disappear, pretty handy when it comes to trying to figure out where it went, especially if it was just lost and not stolen. Yeah, you got one right there on your keys. Excellent example. Air tag on the keys.
Another plus with air tags is that airlines are now associated with that, so you can give them your air tag ID and they'll have a faster way of finding your baggage.
Perfect. Yeah, good point. Thank you. Yeah, for sure. I have another little thing here that I've used. I'm sure this is no breaking news to you guys. This is a portable power pack. So I can plug my phone into this instead of an outlet, and it'll charge it. If this is fully charged, it'll fully charge my phone 2.5 times. So if I was out all day and it was difficult to find a place to charge up, could use this to keep my phone going. The FAA just changed the rules, or Homeland Security, so you can't put these in a checked bag anymore because they're lithium batteries and the fire risk. But you can bring them on the carry-on. So kind of handy. I don't know what I paid for this. It wasn't much from Amazon, $15-20. But in a pinch, I could see how it would be worth its weight in gold. So that's one thing to consider. Any other devices like a converter, power converter? My daughter took this one to Israel, and just one of those things that's good to think about before you leave home. You can get them a lot cheaper through Amazon or Target or whatever than you might at the airport when you're in a pinch at the hotel, we need to charge up. We talked a little bit earlier about Bluetooth. So I know AirPods are all the rage, the wireless earbuds. If you do want old school earbuds, they have adapters now that go into the charging port on a newer phone, iPhone or Android. On the other end, there is a little headphone jack, so if you want to go old school with headphones, you can still do it, even though it may not look like it on your phone. Those are pretty inexpensive. And then the last thing I'll bring up on the before you go list, you can share your travel itinerary with people you're traveling with. So you got people around you that have backup copies of what you're doing if yours happens to get lost, or your phone conks out on you, or whatever happens. Again, you wouldn't want to share it on social media, but with your traveling companions or family member at home, not a bad idea to share that with people before you leave. So, while you're traveling, there's kind of a different set of things. On the back side of the handout, there's, again, a little checklist. I'm not saying you have to do all this stuff. They're just things you might want to review and think about before you leave. It seems overly simple, but just keep your eye on your stuff. You probably remember a few months back, Christy Nolan, Secretary of Homeland Security, had her purse or bag stolen from a restaurant in Washington, D.C. It had her Homeland Security badge, her cell phone, all the important stuff in it, gone. Something can happen to the Secretary of Homeland Security. It can happen to anybody, right? So, yeah, you know, kind of goes without saying, but just you gotta keep your guard up, especially if you're in an unfamiliar place. Maybe stay in physical contact with your bag if you can, even more so than you would here. They say the number one thing you can do to protect yourself while traveling is to physically hold on to your stuff. Easier said than done. So I heard somebody on the radio recently talking about traveler's checks, which I hadn't thought of in a number of years, because credit cards have kind of replaced them, right? Sure, you can still get them and use them, but it's pretty rare. But then that led to a conversation about, well, you need to be picky where you're using your credit card. So if you're traveling and you're at a Christmas market in Germany and there's a little kiosk with a tap thing you can buy souvenirs from, yeah, I mean, that's okay. You might want to think about that and where your comfort level is with the risk. Oh, you know, the vendor and the environment you're in. Maybe Google Pay or Apple Pay would be a safer option in that case. They advise you to be picky about where you take out your credit card. If it's a place you don't trust, or doesn't sit right with you, try to find another way. Get some cash, Apple Pay, Google Pay, whatever. Also, while you're traveling, you've probably heard this one too, public charging stations. They're everywhere now. Bus stations, airports, ports where you can plug in your charger. Now, people kind of can't live without them. There are some risks. It took me a while to grasp this one too, but they're not considered real safe. A sophisticated hacker can get into your phone and your stuff through a public charging port if they're on the same area plugged into a similar port. They've got their mysterious ways of worming into other devices in the area. So, again, that might be where something like this comes in. I would think maybe it's a little safer when you're on the airplane than in the airport. But it's something to think about if you're out in a public spot. Maybe put a little extra time into planning for ways to avoid having to charge your phone. Keep it on low power mode, maybe, when you're out and about, to extend the battery life. I've done that, and it works quite well. Another good tip, so many of these are just logical. Don't give your phone to a stranger. If you're standing in front of Niagara Falls and somebody says, hey, I want to take your picture, you'd never think about that in the past. Sure, great, give them the camera, but no, it's your phone. There are those people out there who will grab your phone and they're gone. So even though they might seem like a nice, friendly, trustworthy person, think about it a little bit. Just, I'm not saying don't ever do it, but it's something to be aware of. Have your guard up, and maybe if it's not needed, don't do it. This might be a little harder to do depending on how many people you're traveling with, but I read an article that talked about eavesdropping. It's like pickpockets for words, right? How you can be outside of a hotel or in a restaurant and people will listen, really evil people, and try to figure out where you're staying and what your itinerary is so they know when you're not in your hotel room. I don't know what they do with that information, but apparently not good things. So just have your guard up too if you're talking about your schedule or where you're going or where you're staying. Kind of be aware of your surroundings, who's nearby and might be listening. It's a good tip anyway. And finally, photos. Really tempting to share them right away on Facebook or whatever. Best practice would be to wait till you get home. Hold on to them until you get back. You can do it through WhatsApp. It's encrypted and pretty secure.
What about sending through email or in a text?
Yeah, I think it depends on what network you're connected to. If you're feeling pretty secure, no problem, but if you're on a public Wi-Fi network at a bus station or something, maybe not. The thing though with social media, if it goes on your Facebook page and people you don't know see it, then they know you're gone, and it's a target. And we've got ways of figuring things out. I've got a story about the boarding pass thing. It's kind of creepy. A number of years ago, my daughter was about 13 at the time, was playing an online game with some guy who befriended her. He was catfishing. He was an older married guy with kids in another city, and he convinced her he was her dream guy, and he was coming to Minneapolis, and they should meet up. And he sent her a picture of his boarding pass, and I was able to use his confirmation number and his last name to figure out who he really was. You can go into the airline website, and it'll give you more than just that. And found out he was using a fake name. It was a guy then you could Google. Figured out he was almost 30 years old, married, with kids, and he was trying to get my daughter to meet him at the airport. Just made me sick. But just I throw that out there as an example of the kind of things you can find out just by seeing somebody's boarding pass. Super thankful I could see all that stuff. It was really good. But
So how did he get a boarding pass with a bogus name?
he used his real last name, and there was no first name on the boarding pass. And so that was enough for me to log into Delta, put in the confirmation number and last name, and then it brought up his full name, which was different than what she put in. Yeah, it's crazy. But you know, a professional hacker could do so much more with that information than I could. It's just good to keep things going. So, this next section I want to talk a little bit about your phone as your travel companion. I think my wife used to think I was a pretty good travel companion because I would do all the stuff she didn't want to do. I would do the research, I would figure out where we want to go, I'd make the reservations, I would get the maps, I would plan everything, because I enjoy that and she doesn't. But I think I've been replaced by a phone, because she can do it all now just as easily, faster, and easily. So she's taken a couple of trips without me, didn't need me for anything. I was kind of waiting for it. Can you help with this? No, got it all done. So You guys probably know all of this stuff, but you can use your notes app to record all kinds of stuff. Your hotel room number, license plate on your rental car, just real simple, basic things you might want to remember while you're out and about. It's super handy. You can put some itinerary stuff in there, just the basics. The notes app can be really good to have.
Is it safe?
Yeah, it doesn't go in the network, it's just local on your phone. So, as long as nobody steals your phone and hacks in, it's very simple. And you can kind of do the same thing with your camera. If you're out on a walk and you're not real sure of your surroundings, take a quick shot of a street sign. So, okay, we started here. Or the motel, or hotel marquee, or a restaurant, or whatever. Just little visual reminders of where you came from, how to get back. That can be handy. Rental car, take a shot of the license plate number. You never know. And then you can delete them all later on. But as a short-term reference, your camera and your notes app equally handy.
Could I just mention one thing?
Yeah.
This has been a number of years ago now, but when I was in Mexico, I was involved at the bus station. And it just so, I was with my daughter, who was an adult, and she had given me her cell phone, and I had it in my purse bag, and I got up to see if that was the bus to Cancun. And I mean, very sophisticated crime group. Lady sat down next to her on the other side so that she was distracted. My bag was right here. And I hadn't told her, watch my bag, I'm going, my fault, right? And so this lady, and my daughter's a Spanish teacher, so she knows Spanish. But this lady started talking and asking questions. And then a guy came up from behind, they told us later, and he snatched my bag.
Oh.
So all of a sudden, it was everything, boarding pass, my camera, my driver's license, all my money, the jewelry I bought, anything that I really wanted to hang on to, plus her cell phone. But the kicker was, she had some cash, she had some money, so she said, and the police there were absolutely zero help. This was in Playa del Carmen. And so my daughter said, I'm going to call, I've got to call and report this. She could not stop her cell phone from being used because her name was not as the administrator on the cell phone account. So just as a piece of information, I would strong, if it's a husband and wife even traveling together, or one of you's traveling and the other's at home, so she couldn't stop any payments being, or the phone from being used for anything because her name wasn't on it. So that was kind of an eye-opener for us too.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good one.
And then the other thing, correlation with that, and we all probably know this, and I know better now, like I said, this is a number of years ago, but you should always keep some cash in a pocket or someplace on you, because what happened to me, had I been traveling alone, the cops said, go to the police station. It was a little kiosk by the bus station. And I'm like, well, how can I get there? I have no money. I said, will you give me a ride? Well, first I said, will you give me a ride? No. I said, well, I have no money. How can I get there? Well, you should report this. And my daughter said, Mom, we're leaving. And she got a cab and we went to the airport. And of all things, I'm sorry, this is kind of a fun story. It's an eye-opener. We got to the airport, we were standing in this huge line of people, and I said, we can't stand here and wait, I have no identification. I need to get to the front of the line and talk to the people. So I'm like, I was robbed, so I need to talk, as I'm going through the crowd to get to the front. And of all things, the man that I spoke with there, get this, he had friends in St. Cloud, Minnesota. And he knew where I was living in Wilmer at the time.
Yeah.
He knew where that was. He knew where St. Cloud was. And because it was a charter type flight, I think you know, it was a Sun Country type flight.
Yeah.
My name was on the manifest, and he said, stay up here, I will tell them that you can get on the phone, on the plane, and I had no identification. But luckily, when my daughter got married, she did not change her last name. So her last name was the same as mine, and she vouched for me. So it was like, thank you, God.
Yeah.
And I was never so happy to get on that plane. But I got grilled when I entered the US.
Yeah.
This is where I really had to, you know, answer a lot of questions and everything. But, you know, to keep money someplace else, probably even keep a copy of your passport somewhere on you other than a bag that you're carrying.
Yeah.
So that was,
Good
that
tip.
was very scary. But yeah, and never take someone else's passport and keep it. You know, you should keep your own I don't know if that's infringing on
No,
what you
no,
wanted to
not at
talk
all.
about.
That's great.
It was, I mean, when it happens to you, it becomes real.
Yeah.
It's like, I could have been sitting in jail there for a month. I had no money, no identification.
Scary thought.
Yeah.
No, thank you. That's great.
Yeah.
I know we're down to about 15 minutes or so, so I'll pick up the pace a little. Probably don't need to go through this in great detail, but your phone can do a lot of things we don't use it for every day. Or maybe you do alarm clock, flashlight, compass, map, notepad, of course, the camera. They're so good now on the cell phones. You don't need a high-end camera anymore. Weather app, keep track of what's going on where you are in Florida during hurricane season, for example. And then don't underestimate the importance of entertainment. If you're waiting around, it's nice to have solitaire or something like that. Help you pass the time or watch a movie on the flight or whatever. Another thing they may be underutilized for now, but I think it's about to ramp up, is translation. You know, some of the newer ones, you can put your camera on a sign or something that's in French, and it'll translate it for you. I haven't seen them yet, but the new generation of Apple AirPods with the new iPhone will translate real time from one language to another just by hearing it, which is kind of mind-blowing. And, you know, there's always Siri or the Google Assistant. You're walking down the street, hey, where's the nearest cafe? I think we always use it that way, but it's really good at that kind of thing. Maybe easier than trying to fire really tight things. In your phone, it's got a digital wallet, so you can store, let's say, rewards cards for Marriott or something like that in there, or your rental car rewards number, or your boarding pass, things like that. Plane tickets, event tickets if you booked something, a museum or a concert. Generally, in the digital wallet, you can save most of that stuff on your phone. Again, your camera, maps, GPS. I don't know how often you use it this way, but you know, if you're looking to drive from here to there, that's great. But it will also do it on foot. You can give walking directions from one place to another, or bike, or if you want it to keep you off of the highways and take side streets or reduce the number of turns or whatever. You've got some options in your maps that maybe are a little bit underutilized.
If you do use it for walking, make sure it's set on walking.
Yes.
I did have some friends that were walking on a one-way road. They had to take a lot around the block instead of just turning around and walking the other direction.
That's a good, yeah, exactly. We're not walking. So I was a little bit curious. I know travel agents aren't nearly as prevalent as they used to be. I did a little research. You want to guess how much the number of travel agents has reduced over the last 20 years?
It's about 80% reduction.
About 70%, yeah, and declining. So, who's your travel agent now? Your computer or your phone, right? So I tend to think maybe the thing I'm most thankful for about the internet is compared prices. You can set those alerts for flights, hotels, hits a certain level, hey, Honolulu's $400. Being pretty handy for that. And finding deals on car rentals, of course. I think I used my phone the last time I booked a car rental, compared all the major companies. I ended up doing it through Costco because they were a little bit cheaper. I also had an experience where I tried to book lodging through TripAdvisor. I was looking on there was a review for a place that I wanted to stay. It was kind of an Airbnb deal. It was in Montana. So I booked it through TripAdvisor. I got a call a few minutes later from the guy who owns the property. And he said, hey, thanks for booking. I'm going to cancel that reservation because they charge me all these fees to do it through TripAdvisor. I've got an ad on Craigslist. I'm going to give you the Craigslist rate. And it was like $50 less a day or something like that. If I just dealt with him directly, he asked me to mail him a check. I was able to Google the guy and found out he was legit. He was a realtor in that town. I felt comfortable doing it. It saved me money, worked out really well. So pays to shop around a little bit. He did the shopping for me in that case. You'll find the same properties on multiple sites at different prices, which is one of the benefits of the internet. I'll close with a little bit about artificial intelligence because that's such a buzzword right now. And it is expected to have an even greater impact on the travel industry. It's starting to show up. Some of the positive things are hotel shuttle scheduling, airport shuttles. So they're a little better using AI, knowing when the people are coming in and when to expect the hotel guests to arrive and that sort of thing. Less room for human error and some of that stuff, greater efficiencies. Some real busy tourist spots are using it to manage the flow of people. Like the number of people being admitted at a given time, or tickets that are available at certain times of day, to keep things moving a little more smoothly. So there are some perks to it. A librarian we work with here went to Maine recently. She'd never been there before. And as an experiment, she asked Google Gemini, their AI tool, to plan a trip, to come up with an itinerary. And it was kind of a lark at first until she saw it and she thought, it's pretty good. And they actually followed it. She and her husband followed the itinerary, scheduled things out, and she came back and said, that was fantastic. She did very little research ahead of the trip. And it saved her time. And it worked better than what she thought she would have come up with. So I thought that was kind of an interesting anecdote.
Do you have any feelings? I've noticed lately when I Google a topic, what comes up, like if I ask a question or something, is AI generated.
Right.
And I'm just wondering, how accurate is that? Is it pulling accurate information, or what's your take?
I think generally it's pretty accurate, but I wouldn't stake my life on it. The way I look at it, it's kind of like you're asking Google a question. It's a little bit like coming in here and asking me, what is weather? And then I would go out to the stacks and I'd find every book with every mention of rain, snow, sleet, hail, cold, hot, humidity, every kind of term related to weather. And then I'd come back here about 9 years later and summarize everything I read in a couple of sentences. So AI does that in a second or two. So it's checking resources, but it's only as good as the resources that it checks. Generally pretty good and pretty reliable. I think the more concrete question you're asking, the better the results. If it's a little more abstract or an opinion can factor into it, maybe not as reliable. If I were to ask Google, what are some technologies, tips for travel? It might be a little too broad and too vague, but if I said, what are some places I want to see in New York City? It might give me a pretty good specific list. As it's going out, looking at reviews, figuring out what people have liked in the past, highlighted in seconds.
It also might make up a few.
Yeah, it might. Yeah. Susan has experienced some of the AI fictitious results.
Yes, we've got some people looking from books that they saw from AI or citations that don't really exist. AI hallucinated them. So, kind of depends.
So over the last 25 years or so, only about 1% of technology investment, like startup companies and new technology, has been travel focused. It's a pretty small piece of the pie. That might change now with AI, we'll see. There's some debate, because people, part of travel is the people, right? You want to interact with the people wherever you go. So a lot of people are reluctant. Hospitality companies and even airlines just don't want to lose that human touch completely. So they might be a little slow. But when it comes to managing their flight schedules and fuel efficiency, meals and efficiencies like that, baggage, there might be some real benefits. There is an industry called travel technology. It's about a $5.8 billion a year industry, but by 2030, 5 years from now, I figure to be a $10 billion industry. So I'm sure we've got changes coming, but a little slower to show up in travel maybe than business and some other fields. But, you know, I lied, I said I was going to wrap up just a couple more things. On your phone, if you don't use facial recognition to open apps, you might want to consider that while you're traveling. It works pretty well, like the fingerprint deal. It's just another layer that can keep a phone thief from getting to your stuff if they walk off with your bag in Mexico or wherever. Again, log out of apps and websites when you're not using them. Log out of accounts. It makes it harder for them to get into them. Really, that's about all I have time to cover. Any questions here?
If you do lose your phone,
Yeah.
because that happened to me in London in April,
Oh,
so that was a nightmare.
yeah. Did you
And
have?
because things like, I'm glad I had my credit card.
Yeah.
I'm glad I had my ticket.
Yeah. Well, in the IT world, they say redundancy is good. Backups of everything. Same deal with your money and your phone and all that. Yeah, that's scary.
Passwords.
Yeah.
I've been one who makes complicated passwords.
Yep.
And so you kind of hesitate to write all those down
You do.
before you go. Do you have any suggestions of safe ways to,
I'm a fan of using song lyrics.
okay,
Like, as an example, on the 5th day of Christmas, or something like that. And then for different apps, you could change the number. 99 bottles of beer on the wall. Change the number on different apps so it's not an identical password. Maybe substitute a symbol for one of the letters, or that kind of thing. So they're easy enough to remember, but not easy to guess because they're long. 99 bottles of beer on the wall is 18 characters or something like that, which puts you on the bottom of each other. Other than that, yeah, there are those password saver things you can use that will automatically log you into things. So you've got one password in your password saver, and then it knows all your other passwords.
and those are safe?
Yeah, pretty safe. Yeah, that's a good idea. I'm hesitant to call anything safe. You know what I mean? But yeah, there are levels.
That's my mentality.
And on the
Yeah.
safe scale, that's pretty safe. Well, thank you all for coming. Thanks for everybody online tuning in and checking it out. And again, I'm Scott. I'm a library tech associate. I sit out where you can find me in the Chanhassen and Laconia libraries mostly. Drop by if you have follow-up questions. Let me know. I may not have the answers, but I can look them up when I know people who are even better at that than I am. But, yeah, it was a pleasure meeting you. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.